Welcome.
to Dark Narratives. I'm Isabella.
And I'm Alexandria.
I was thinking today, I wanted to know about that disembodied voice that you heard at work.
Oh, I forgot to tell you.
Yes.
Well, the other Friday, I was at work, and where I sit in my office, I'm in the very back corner. There's no one around me. There's one other female coworker that's a few cubicles, I guess you'd call them,
Okay.
to my right. And it was kind of dead that day. There was literally no one in the office. And I heard a male, it was like a young male, and I had my head
Ooh.
down, just say, hello? Questioning. It was so clear. I thought he was right beside me. And so
Oh,
because I didn't recognize the voice, and
yeah.
I've worked at that place for over a decade now, and I so
Yeah.
I know people's voices. Yeah, it was really weird. So I turned and I was like, "Oh," and then I saw my female coworker a few seats over with her head down and she had her headphone in, and I thought, "Oh, okay, she accidentally called her boyfriend on speaker and he said hello." And so I went back and then I watched her for a second and she wasn't speaking and she was just looking down and I said, "Hey, are you on the phone?" And she looked at me confused and so I was like, "Oh, did you accidentally go on speakerphone?" And she had no idea what I was talking about. And I said, "Well, did you not hear that?" And she said, "Hear what?"
Oh my
And,
God.
we were the only people in the back of the office, and it would have been a male in between us. And I'm like, "What the fuck?" So it was so clear and so it wasn't like a whisper. It was so clear and so I don't know, thick is the right
Yeah.
word, but so much there so that I was like, there's no way that that did not happen.
Like
And
you heard it clear as day. There was no
yeah, and
denying
it
it.
it didn't feel it was so real, it didn't feel creepy. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like
Yeah.
a whisper in my ear or something like that.
Yeah.
It was freaking heard it, I swear.
Oh my
And so
gosh. So
then,
it's just somebody passing through
well, it was like a
with you two?
dimensional thing or something.
Like a
So anyways,
glitch?
right? Okay, so I pop up and I'm thinking I don't know, there's a male coworker that doesn't work in the office as often anymore. And so I thought, oh, maybe he popped in and I just don't recognize his voice anymore. And I popped up, he wasn't there. There was no one else there. And it was just a quiet Friday. So then I'm thinking, go like back to the phones where in the old building, the phones used to do that. So I'm like, okay, a phone call must have come through because there are empty desks beside me
Mhm.
and adjacent to myself. And so I'm thinking, okay, those phones are connected. I'm going to check the history on those phones
Just in case, yeah.
just in case because I'm thinking, okay, this was too real. It was there I heard it. There's no way. So anyways, I got up and I checked all the phones around me, zero records. On
Wow. It just makes me think, yeah, like almost like this weird intelligent spirit or something, or a glitch in the matrix, like somebody is just quickly passing through you two and just
that.
for a split second makes its way.
I think that's what it
You know
was.
what I
I think it
mean?
was a split like it was a split crossing in the universe or
Yeah,
just dimensions crossed. There was a
right.
portal that was open for a second, and there was somebody that was confused or something.
Oh my gosh, that's so creepy.
'Cause yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I did. It didn't feel paranormal. Like I said, it didn't feel super creepy. It
Yeah,
certainly happened though,
you definitely heard it. That's
for sure, and
insane.
enough to for me to think, well, to lift my head up and turn
Well,
physically
yeah,
to
and to, like, investigate it to that extent, trying to figure it out. Like, trying every way to explain it away,
yeah.
but you can't. Have you ever got, like, weird vibes in this building prior to this?
No, that's why I don't think it was any. That's why I'm like, it wasn't a
Did you
ghost.
ever feel anything in the other building?
I don't think so. Did you?
Yeah, not really. And I spent a lot of time like up in yeah, in the
Yeah.
mezzanine, and I didn't really feel anything.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
what do they always say? Like we're experiencing a different simulation. It was the
oh,
brain
totally.
simulation.
Yeah. We're all just a simulation. Yeah, tonight is not, there's definitely some murder in it,
Oh,
but it is not solely focused on that. I went in a spooky direction, and I'm gonna take you to
the pen.
the penitentiary.
Oh! I am so excited.
Yeah, we're gonna go
Yes,
to the
let's get
penitentiary, and
spooky.
we're not gonna go to any penitentiary. We're gonna go to a old Victorian Gothic style penitentiary built in the 1800s.
Oh, take me there.
Yeah, so that shit has got some serious history on it. So this is the Moundsville, West Virginia Penitentiary, built with the inspiration of the old Gothic Victorian style to it. And honestly, that has always been such a fantasy for me of
Yeah,
living in like a Gothic Victorian home.
I know you and I both.
Oh my gosh, and then decorating the inside of it, like, just so moody and with velvet, and it would still have, like, the clean look to it, but just old style, you know?
And just like running around in a black gothic ball gown.
Ooh, or like a long flowy, robe, because I love robes.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be
Um,
amazing. Like, if I could do it, like, if it wouldn't be a potential money drain and headache, like, because you'd have to take this old home and get it up to code and
oh
everything, like,
yeah.
to insure it properly and stuff, I would 100%, I've always told Dylan this, I would 100%, we would buy one for sure.
Let's move in together.
Oh my gosh, I just love that. Should we buy a whole Victorian home and make it our pod lab?
Well,
I love
we
that.
could buy a mansion and then you know
Yeah,
how you and I like our own space? We wouldn't
yeah,
have to actually see each other other than to
perfect.
do a podcast. So we could
Yeah.
have a pod
Like,
lab
you're
inside of
in
our
one
mansion.
wing and I'm in the other wing, and then it's in the
Yes.
middle.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, we do love our space. That's why I love we work so well together because we're both like home and self bodies, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. This is a big, beautiful castle looking structure that is penitentiary that is sitting right in the center of the town.
Oh.
And the reason it's sitting literally right in the center of town is because it was obviously built first. So this penitentiary was built back in 1876. The area started expanding, so now we have businesses and homes that have developed around this building,
Oh.
castle-looking jail. Yeah.
Weird. I guess because of
Crazy.
jobs.
Exactly. That would be so weird to be able to look out my window or drive past this penitentiary every day. This penitentiary is home to the worst of humanity and also sits on top of an old burial ground that holds very dark history in it. For that could be like a whole nother episode of, and it kind
That's a
of just
bad
like adds,
combination.
yeah, it kind of just adds to this terrible juju in the area.
Yeah.
While the community is sleeping, there's inmates in this castle-looking building that are killing each other,
What?
committing suicide, committing rapes. They're scheming,
Ooh,
rioting,
what the
not much
hell is going on?
also escapes that have been made in the center of town.
I'm like thinking, where are these people coming from? Because obviously they're not from that town because they were brought there and then the town was built around it.
Yeah. This place is insane. So how I came to do this one, like I don't know if you have Discovery Plus,
Yeah.
watching they have so much ghost shows, paranormal shows, unsolved mysteries, murder, all that.
Yeah. I need to
So
get into it.
so I was watching this ghost show, and I don't know why it's not coming to my mind right now, but I'll have it like
Oh,
show
notes.
notes of the different stuff that I had researched. But yeah, I was watching that, and they were touring this. Before we get into the history and the events that happened in this prison, I just want to give you a little bit more information about the place itself. Moundsville Penitentiary was built back in 1876, like I mentioned, and it had been built in sections because it obviously took a while to complete. Initially, it was built to hold about 650 inmates, and they didn't really intend on expanding it much. And it was home to men and women for like a short period of time until they eventually made a women's prison, and it slowly became a men's.
Oh.
So before the prison took the title of one of the most violent prisons in America, it was a prison that mostly tried to focus on rehabilitating the inmates that came in there. They would have structure and opportunities for when the inmates actually got out of prison, the ones that weren't obviously serving life. So they had jobs that helped the inmates work on their trade skills. They even had a coal mine on the property where the inmates would help work on it. So
Oh.
it'd give the inmates responsibility and jobs, and then it would also help the prison cut
Yeah.
costs and stuff. I thought that was
Almost like a
crazy.
cult.
Right? Everybody has a job.
Yeah.
I'm not eating tonight. They even had education available and drug treatment and counseling, which I actually thought was just crazy because of the time. Like even up into the 90s, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
innovative of them.
Yeah, and I don't really know when, because eventually, because the prison started to get overcrowded, I don't know when they may have stopped having those available. But even in that, the whole time, that would have just been kind of unheard of, I think.
Yeah.
So they did initially have that goal in mind, but unfortunately, there is no shortage of demons walking the earth. So eventually, the prison started to become completely overcrowded, overworked, underfunded, undersupervised, which in turn turned the prison into what some nicknamed it either hell on earth or bloody alley.
Wow.
It's took a really bad turn. I mean, prison, like to begin with, is not a goal to have, and it's
Yeah.
not going to be a comfortable stay, but it became you absolutely did anything to avoid ending up in this prison. Moundsville had a death row section where they ended up carrying out over 90 executions from the time it opened to the time it was closed in 1995.
What
And
kind of executions did they perform?
actually, before lethal injection was a thing, and even the electric chair, they had the gallows.
Oh.
Where there was a noose placed on someone's neck and a trap door opened beneath them, tightening the noose until the person was dead. But like before society eventually was like, hey, no more hanging people. It's actually medieval. Let's instead go to the electric chair. This prison very much so used the gallows as their execution, and pretty much like a very large amount of executions within this prison were by hanging, and it was very common here for these to be viewed by the community but also the people who were affected by the crime. So it was like quite a spectacle when somebody was executed
Oh.
here.
Oh, yeah.
And they kept this up, the viewings, up until a horrifying scene happened in front of everybody with one of the hangings. One of the inmates was getting ready to be hung. And there was, like I said, a crowd. They went to open the trap door before the noose was actually on the inmate properly. When he fell, he was literally decapitated.
Oh,
Yeah, and I can't tell from anywhere if it was an internal capitation or if the force just pulled so hard his fucking head popped off. I don't
What?
know.
Wait, so how? How? Wait, what? So the door.
They must have done something wrong when they put the noose on, where he was just
Ah,
completely detached from his spine. So it was,
oh God.
you know what I mean? Like if you, yeah, you don't, I don't know if you really want to envision what could have went wrong here.
Oh, too late.
I know. Is yeah. After this, the person was like, "Okay, probably shouldn't have a crowd watching things that we do
Well,
wrong."
they're like, did we check this executioner's credentials?
Yes, and it was a good thing that they did stop the viewings because shortly after, another mishap happened with one of the executions by hanging. They went to again open the trap door, but one of the guards opened the trap door before the noose was even on all the way. So
Oh,
once it opened, the guy just fell headfirst into the concrete.
oh God.
Yeah. And then before the inmate could be like, what the fuck, am I alive or dead? Because the last thing he thought was he was getting hung. The
Yeah.
guards were like, oh fuck. So they quickly got this guy back up and properly put the noose on him and hung him.
Oh my God. Fuck, 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 fuck.
Fuck, 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 get him, get him. Yeah.
Honestly, though, I mean, even watching someone being hung, like that's pretty gruesome.
Yes.
So, no, so even these things going wrong.
Lot of these executions were done by hanging until eventually society was like, you know what? Electrocution. Let's electrocute somebody.
Let's
So,
go.
so they just cook from the inside. We'll just make them sit there. We don't have to do much.
Oh, horrible.
Electricity. Yeah, they said, okay, we'll stop the hanging and we'll do the electric chair. And we're going to save cost. They were like, you know what? I bet someone in here can construct a chair for us, an electric chair.
What?
And they did
What?
find an inmate who did. And that chair would be named Old Sparky. And it is still a part
Gross.
of the history of the building. So it's still in there right now.
It's still in there.
Hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Mhm.
Sparky.
So Sparky. So, aside from the deaths that were carried out as a result of their initial crimes that even brought them there in the first place, there were many deaths that occurred within the walls of the prison just by the hands of other inmates or themselves.
Yeah.
So, before we get into some of the brutal murders that happened between the inmates, I wanted to discuss how things were changing as the years went on and some of the riots that were carried out as a result of how things were changing over the years. Remember how I said that the prison was initially built for about 650 inmates?
Yeah.
So by the 70s, I think there was almost like 1,000 inmates.
My God.
Yeah, so the prison started to become extremely overcrowded.
As most of them still are to this day.
Yes. But with this overcrowding, the inmates started to be on top of each other all the time, trying to serve their
Literally.
sentences. Yeah, literally. They were already like angry and violent because you wouldn't be in this penitentiary if you weren't. It housed the worst of the worst. To make it worse, the prison also started to become dirtier and the food became worse and the medical care became sparse and there wasn't enough bedding or beds. Your needs are not going to be top shelf when you're in prison, but it started to become inhumane.
Yeah.
Because of the conditions going on in the prison, tension was rising and a riot eventually broke out in protest of this. This riot happened in 1973 and this one lasted about 2 days and it resulted in like a plethora of stabbings and assaults. Ultimately, only one inmate died.
Oh.
Which is crazy because it's a riot. The inmates were actually able to negotiate better living conditions along with better and equal treatment between the guards and them because I guess that was becoming a really bad issue in there.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Before I get to the second riot that kind of set this prison on a downward spiral, I just wanted to tell you about an escape that happened here. So, 15 prisoners in 1979, on a night that the prison was pretty understaffed, they were able to escape. They had ended up getting their hands on a gun within the prison. smuggled in. And one of the inmates that was also a barber in the prison, he was with a guard going to put all the barber stuff, the supplies away. And when he did that, he was able to overtake this guard because he was unarmed, and they were able to get out of the prison.
Oh my God.
So eventually all of them except for one was found, and the last one was able to stay on the run for an entire year before he was eventually found and taken back
Ew, he was the smart
into
one.
he was violent as fuck. He was taken back into custody, but only after a nice big gunfight in New York.
Wow. Oh, he made it to New York. How
Made
far
it to
is
New York.
that?
Well, I mean, 8 hours away. 1 year.
Driving?
He made it to fucking New York.
8 hours driving?
Yeah, 8 hours driving.
He didn't have a car, so you must have hitchhiked that entire way or
A
walked. Yeah,
walk will take
that's it.
166 hours. And then in the same year, 4 others escaped this
Oh
prison.
my
They spent an entire summer digging a hole. I'm not sure where.
Shawshank Redemption.
And this also reminded me of Prison Break. Have you ever watched that show?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, I'm not sure. It was kind of different in different sources, but I think it may have been in a greenhouse, like on Prison Break.
Maybe that's what Prison Break is based off of.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, they sentenced the entire summer digging it just to get caught within 2 days. So the second riot, and like I said, this riot was a bigger one, and it kind of led towards the ending of the prison eventually. After the riot in the 70s, the conditions and the promises to make the conditions better in the prison, it obviously didn't go too far at all, and the guards began also complaining, saying that they were understaffed, undertrained, they were underarmed for the facility, and the amount of overcrowding that there was. They were outnumbered.
Yeah.
And so it was obvious that they could be overtaken. So again, things were getting worse with the beds, the bedding, like the mattresses and the food, the medical care. Diseases started to spread around the prison. And because of how bad it was overcrowding, the plumbing started to become a really big issue. It was only constructed for a certain occupancy, and it was way over that at this point. So I guess raw sewage would start to back up and flood Vegas.
Oh,
That just makes me want to vomit.
salmonella poisoning.
Yeah, well, and like I said, a lot of diseases started spreading.
Yeah.
With this happening, the smell in the prison started to become like, just putrid. And then they started to have infestations of insects and
Oh, that's so rancid.
eventually, again, because of the overcrowding, their 5x7 cells, they started to have 3 to a cell,
Ew.
just packing these people into these spaces.
How did they did they have?
They would have a bed on the floor and then bunks or something like that
That
came
doesn't
down from
sound
the
fun.
wall. No.
Worst sleepover ever.
Well, and like I said, like
And I
imagine
wonder,
sewage backing up and you're laying on the floor. And because of the insulation on this prison was non-existent, it would get below freezing in these cells.
well, not even that. We're in West Virginia. It's gonna get hot as shit and stink.
Oh yeah, to the
Rancid.
ground. Yeah.
And rotting and
Really bad.
yeah.
Yeah. They also had a really serious concern with transporting inmates around the prison. So like I don't know, years ago was watching this one documentary of this prison in Russia, and when they transport these prisoners, they transport them, they have to be bent forward and
Oh.
their hands cuffed behind their back and their feet cuffed. So they kind of shuffle with their back bent and their heads down looking down, so they don't see anything around them, so they can't.
Why wouldn't they just blindfold them? I feel like just
I can't remember. I feel like they
logistically they would move quicker.
they don't want anybody to see these inmates. It's probably a sort of like domination too, right?
Yeah.
And so they can't get a feel of the prison or anything. And
Man.
so in this case, there was no proper way to move these prisons around, because in some cases you don't want, in some prisons you'll have like a block where you have really bad, like dismembered a bunch of people, like your serial killers, and then you have like your rapists, and some inmates can't see other inmates.
Yeah.
So they transport inmates differently in prisons, and there's like protocol, but they couldn't really keep up with that in this prison because it was built in the 1800s. Some inmates had started throwing like their shit shit and their piss out the cells at the
Oh,
guards.
okay.
They're just pissed off and they're gross and they don't shower. This place is getting deplorable.
That sounds so almost to the level of I don't know how to say it, but clearly their mental, I don't even know if it's their mental
Mhm.
state, but they're clearly not, I don't know, like their intellect. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It brings
yeah.
us back to monkeys throwing
Well,
shit.
100%. And I just feel like there's no shame or there's no such thing as like dignity,
I can't
whatever.
imagine a lot of them are very intelligent too. It brings it back to primates, I guess, is what I'm
Yes.
yeah.
Acting like a bunch of just, I don't want to diss
Yeah.
cavemen, but yeah.
No civilization.
With all of this going on, like an idea of how things were looking, on New Year's Day in 1986, at about 5:30 in the evening, the inmates who were part of a gang called Avengers carried out a horrendous riot. Yeah, Avengers, in protest again to the conditions that they were all living in. So when they did this too, the mayor, he was just like away on a holiday.
Well, okay.
In this
You're allowed
instance,
to take holidays.
you are.
Yeah.
In this instance, there were 15 hostages, prison guards, just people who worked at the prison, and there was also one outside delivery guy who was there delivering the food.
Oh no. He
I
was a
know.
hostage?
He was a hostage, yeah.
Oh
Because
no.
he was delivering the food and this happened. This started in the dining hall
Oh
at dinner.
no.
It does end up okay for not in death, I should say, not okay. It doesn't end up in death for the hostages, but it also fucking scarred them, I can imagine, forever. The inmates held the hostages this time for over 3 days and
Oh,
they stripped them of any dignity that they could have. They forced all of them to strip all of their clothing and sit there with handcuffs, completely silent.
what?
They had to do this while the inmates would drag their shivs across their necks and yell threats and insults at them.
Oh.
Right? There was an inmate who would say like it'd be okay and that they're not going to hurt them, but then other inmates would assure them like no, they're going to die. So they would constantly have this like mind game going on.
Oh, and I'm sure the inmates were battling for power too, like,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah. I was reading on like an older newspaper. Some of the guards spoke out about what it looked like inside for them during the riot. There was a couple here, or few. One said that he was actually in the dining hall where the riot began. He had been patrolling it when he heard a scream and then immediately saw inmates just charging into the area. And then they knocked him down and held him there with a foot on his face.
Jesus.
Another one said that he could see like when it was happening, he was in a part of the prison where he could, I guess like through a window, you could like see into the dining room and he was looking and he saw a commotion and so he tried to radio the code for like inmates fighting or then he also seen inmates charging at him with their shivs and stuff and
Oh.
he was like I just knew what was happening here.
And they're all trying to fight for some form of significance, these like inmates.
Exactly. Another one said that he heard the radio call that was trying to go out and he was like, okay, I got to get to the captain's room. And I'm not sure if that's like at a room agreed upon, like their version of a muster area or something in the event of a riot, or if it's just the warden's office. I don't know. But he's like, I got to get to the captain's room. But then he ended up getting trapped on his way there and smoked over the head by the inmates.
Jesus.
The last one that I found, he said that he was behind a locked gate when it happened and he was thinking that he was safe. But when he saw the inmates swarming in, he saw that they also had the keys on them,
Oh my
like
God.
on the inmates from knocking out the other guards. So when they got him to come out, like got him out of the room, they immediately grabbed the back of his neck and just tossed him around like a rag doll.
I can't imagine. I'm so short. I would be fucking thrown
You
around.
could like let them come towards you and then immediately get down on all fours and like crawl
Oh, maybe
quickly
go through
through
their
all of
legs.
them. Yeah, exactly. They're so erratic right now. I don't even know if they'd all run into the wall.
Yeah, they don't sound too intelligent. It just sounds like they're
No.
just being crazy.
Eventually, though, after all of that, 200 phone calls and 27 meetings, they were able to negotiate again so-called better living conditions moving forward. And a court order was even given this time for like making sure that the prison would abide by these improvements in order for them to be able to, they were like, this is deplorable and a change does have to be made in an attempt to make things better. There really wasn't much. They said that they added about like 50 more guards, but after the riot, a bunch of guards left. So it kind of just like canceled it out, the effort.
Yeah.
So they built some new security doors and updated the dining hall. Things that probably needed to be done anyways.
We painted the walls.
We painted the walls, but we didn't cover up any of the holes,
We
nothing.
put
That's
in
it.
some Febreze. Okay.
Yeah. We gave them all Febreze. It
We
was
poured some Drano down there.
yeah, we poured some Drano. We put some mouse traps up. So yeah, they didn't really do much and the prison kept going for like quite a few years actually. It continued to hold up the name of being one of the most violent prisons in America.
That's insane.
So during the time it was open, there was many murders among inmates and all as violent as you can imagine. But there was one that was so horrific. Artie Wall, who was an inmate and also like had the job of a maintenance guy within the prison, he got along with the guards and was kind of like kept his head down, like he was kind of quiet. But that also pissed all of the inmates off because why are you talking to the guard? That's a
Okay.
big no-no. To take care of Artie Wall, inmates hid and waited for him to pass on his way down to the boiler room because again, he was a maintenance guy. The inmates jumped out and attacked the fuck out of him.
What?
They mutilated him. They
What?
cut all his fingertips off. They
Oh.
stabbed his hands. They stabbed him in the head repeatedly. And then they eventually cut his throat. And then they decapitated him
Wow.
and just propped him up with his head balancing right on his neck.
How did this all happen without any, like, it takes quite a bit to cut a head off.
So that was literally one of my first questions when I was reading this. I'm like, what the fuck is how do you have that much time and space to do all of this? And it's because the prison was so fucking overcrowded that there was barely any supervision. They were
Oh
absolutely able
my.
to run this prison with no guard.
And let's think about this right now because there is no fucking way that they had any type of tool that would have done that quickly. So they're
Yeah.
just probably created or Jimmy rigged some
Yeah.
kind of fucking tool to stab him, and then that's what they
Mhm.
used to cut his head off. There's no way that they had like a machete or something.
Exactly.
Oh,
So they've
that's
got all
disgusting.
this time to do all of this. Yeah, and they just left him there. This horrific mess.
Do we know why Artie was incarcerated in the first place?
I think he was yeah, he was serving a life term for rape.
Oh, gross.
So it had to have been to go to this prison
For
for
rape in the
life
80s?
for rape.
Because
Yeah.
in the 80s, and rape and without murder, and just, yeah, rape and yeah, he must have been a piece
Like
of
it
shit.
must have been like, yeah. The prison also had a section that even though there was already like no supervision, they had a space that they nicknamed the Sugar Shack. That was a
Cute.
that was a rec room. And to access it from outside, and you'd go down these small flight of stairs, entered into like this cement basement. No windows or anything, just a cement basement that they called the Sugar Shack.
God.
And it had no supervision and
Oh.
only one door.
Oh no.
In this place, they would also gamble, fight, they would carry out rapes in there. Pretty much anything went.
Yeah, and there could just be someone standing at the door blocking it and saying, "Well, you
Exactly.
can't get out. There's no windows."
Yeah, it was, I guess they would have like paints and stuff too, so they would just go nuts on the walls.
It's insane. I wonder why it got
Eventually.
I wonder why I got into Sugar Shack.
I tried to look into why it was named the Sugar Shack, and there really wasn't much of a reason why, other than the fact that there was just no restrictions.
Yeah, weird. So sweet. It's so sweet down here.
Well, and I think even maybe if they would have had the one guard or something, like, they're kind of outnumbered.
Yeah.
So remember how I mentioned that there was a court order that was you have to take care of this?
Yeah.
Even though it still went on for years and years, it did eventually get shut down. In 1995, they ended up saying that the conditions were inhumane and just straight up unconstitutional.
1995. That's so long.
I know.
That's insane.
Like I said, it still stands today, but it's been through the ringer with curious and mischievous people. Get into some of the ghost stuff.
Ooh,
It
yes.
has become such a hot spot for history tours. It's been used for mock riots. Other training correctional officers go there and they'll set up a mock riot.
Oh,
That is not like scary.
insane that you'd get into that line of work.
I know. It was also the set of a movie called A Little Glass of Rum. Out of the Furnace was filmed there.
Creepy.
So there is some serious ghost sightings and stories that go along with this building as well. Moundsville is known to have its residual intelligent hauntings and shadow people, which I'm not even surprised about. People have seen apparitions and orbs move across the room. When you're in the prison, you'll hear noises but echoing through the prison. You'll be in there and all of a sudden you'll have extreme cold spots kind of come up out of nowhere. And one of the TV shows that I was watching on Discovery Plus, he was in there doing a ghost hunt and he's talking and the camera guy's shooting him and all of a sudden you can see his breath. It's
Whoa.
almost like the camera guy took a second to take that in because he's like, dude, what the hell?
Weird.
Isn't that
Oh.
scary?
I have full body shit.
So yeah, people feel like they are always being watched
Hate
while
that.
it I hate that too. While it was still running, an inmate said that he was like pushed down the stairs by nothing.
What?
Yes, and you think an inmate would be like, this fucking inmate did it, you know? No, he's like, I don't know what just did this, but like I definitely got pushed down the steps.
Oh, weird.
You'll also hear some disembodied footsteps going through the prison, which just scares me.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, that's insane. That's
I do
creepy.
not. I don't like that. You'll feel something brush up against you.
Ew.
And you'll also get really bad smells that will come out of nowhere, like a whoosh of it. We do know that bad smells is not a good sign when it comes to a haunting.
It's like Damon's.
Exactly. But you remember there was raw sewage that kept getting backed up here. So it's just putrid everywhere.
Yeah.
And then there's a shadow person that's kind of known there to be like very tall and have really distinctive eyes, like almost like glowing.
Oh. Like the
You'll also
Slender Man.
exactly. You'll also hear a woman, and they say, I guess she maybe had been there from when it was her small time there, also a women's prison, but they believe it's of this woman who was incarcerated for allegedly killing her kids.
Ew.
So,
I
like,
mean,
fuck you.
horrible. I don't know why I said ew.
They say that
That's
she's like
horrible.
I know, and she's in white, and you could hear her crying and whispering through the prison. And I hope that if she did do this, that she spends her entire eternity.
Well, yeah, I don't know what kind.
Yeah,
Obviously, she had some kind of mental break, but
yeah,
that's
fucked. Yeah.
fucking awful.
But yeah, that is I'm gonna put pictures of this prison, but also some of the pictures from the ghost sightings in our Instagram
Yeah.
and our TikTok too. So you can see just how scary this place is. But to this day, you can book ghost tours and just like
I was just
tours
gonna
of the
ask.
prison. Yeah, you can definitely. If you go to their site, there is so much you can book. But yeah, that is the Moundsville
Oh,
Penitentiary.
I really liked that.
Did you? Okay, good. It was very interesting researching a prison.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, but you can find us on our Instagram and our TikTok, which is both Dark Narratives Podcast. And you can also email us.
darknarrativespodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and send us any insight. Like, have you guys been to this prison and took a tour of it and have any back or ghost encounters that you may have had, or just even like your experience while you were there? Would be so
Yeah.
cool to hear about. And
Rate us if you like us.
but yeah, that is it for this week.
Thanks for listening.
See you creatures next week.
See you creatures. Bye.
And that's it for this week.
Remember, it's a dark world out there.